Chapter 2. A man called Ove makes his neighborhood inspection. It was 5 to 6 in the morning when Ove and the cat met for the first time. The cat instantly disliked Ove exceedingly. The feeling was very much reciprocated. Ove had, as usual, got up 10 minutes earlier. He could not make head or nor tail of people who overslept and blamed it on the alarm clock not ringing. Ove had never owned an alarm clock in his entire life. He woke up at 5:45, and that was when he got up. Every morning for the almost 4 decades they had lived in this house, Ove had put on the coffee percolator, using exactly the same amount of coffee as any other morning, and then drank a cup with his wife. One measure for each cup, and one extra for the jug, no more, no less. People didn't know how to do that anymore, brew some proper coffee. In the same way as nowadays nobody could write with a pen, because now it was all computers and espresso machines. And where was the world going if people couldn't even write or brew a bit of coffee? While his proper cup of coffee was brewing, he put on his navy blue trousers and jacket, stepped into his wooden clogs, and shoved his hands in his pockets in that particular way of a middle-aged man who expects the worthless world outside to disappoint him. Then he made his morning inspection of the street. The surrounding terraced houses lay in silence and darkness as he walked out of the door, and there wasn't a soul in sight. Might have known, thought Ove. In this street, no one took the trouble to get up any earlier than they had to. Nowadays, it was just self-employed people and other disreputable sorts living here. The cat sat with a nonchalant expression in the middle of the footpath that ran between the houses. It had half a tail and only one ear. Patches of fur were missing here and there, as if someone had pulled it out in handfuls. Not a very impressive feline. Ove jumped forward. The cat stood up. Ove stopped. They stood there measuring up to each other for a few moments, like two potential troublemakers in a small town bar. Ove considered throwing one of his clogs at it. The cat looked as if it regretted not bringing its own clogs to lob back. "Scram!" Ove bellowed, so abruptly that the cat jumped back. It briefly scrutinized the 59-year-old man and his clogs, then turned and lolloped off. Ove could have sworn it rolled its sides before clearing out. "Pest," he thought, glancing at his watch. 2 minutes to 6. Time to get going, or Bloody Cat would have succeeded in delaying the entire inspection. Fine state of affairs that would be. He began marching along the footpath between the houses. He stopped by the traffic sign informing motorists that they were prohibited from entering the residential area. He gave the metal pole a firm kick. Not that it was wonky or anything, but it's always best to check. Ove is the sort of man who checks the status of all things by giving them a good kick. He walked across the parking area and strolled back and forth along all the garages to make sure none of them had been burgled in the night or set on fire by gangs of vandals. Such things have never happened around here, but then Ove had never skipped one of his inspections either. He tugged 3 times at the door handle of his own garage, where his Saab was parked, just like any other morning. After this, he detoured through the guest parking area, where cars could only be left for up to 24 hours. Carefully, he noted down all the registration numbers in the little pad he kept in his jacket pocket, and then compared those to the registration he had noted down the day before. On occasions when the same registration numbers turned up in Ove's notepad, Ove would go home and call the vehicle licensing authority to retrieve the vehicle owner's details, after which he'd call up the latter and inform him that he was a useless bloody imbecile who couldn't even read signs. Ove didn't really care who was parked in the guest parking area, of course, but it was a question of principle. If it said 24 hours on the sign, that's how long you were allowed to stay. What would it be like if everyone just parked everywhere they liked? It would be chaos. There'd be cars bloody everywhere. Today, thankfully, there weren't any unauthorized cars in the guest parking, and Ove was able to proceed to the next part of his daily inspection, the bin room. Not that it was really his responsibility, mind. He had steadfastly opposed from the very beginning the nonsense steamroller through by the recently arrived Jeep Brigade that household rubbish had to be separated. Having said that, once the decision was made to sort the rubbish, someone had to ensure that it was actually being done. Not that anyone had asked Ove to do it, but if men like Ove didn't take the initiative, there'd be anarchy. There'd be bags of rubbish all over the place. He kicked the bins a bit, swore, and fished out a jar from the glass recycling. Mumbled something about incompetence as he unscrewed its metal lid. He dropped the jar back into glass recycling and the metal lid into the metal recycling bin. Back when Ove was the chairman of the Residents Association, he'd pushed hard to have surveillance cameras installed so they could monitor the bin room and stop people turfing out unauthorized rubbish. To Ove's great annoyance, his proposal was voted out. The neighbors felt slightly uneasy about it, plus they felt it would be the headache archiving all the videotapes. This in spite of Ove repeatedly arguing that those with honest intentions had nothing to fear from the truth. 2 years later, after Ove had been deposed as chairman of the association, a betrayal Ove subsequently referred to as the coup d'etat, the question came up again. The new steering group explained snappily to the residents that there was a newfangled camera available, activated by movement sensors, which sent the footage directly to the internet. With the help of such a camera, one could monitor not only the bin room but also the parking area, thereby preventing vandalism and burglaries. Even better, the video material erased itself automatically after 24 hours, thus avoiding any breaches of the residents' right to privacy. A unanimous decision was required to go ahead with the installation. Only one member voted against. And that was because Obe did not trust the internet. He spelled it with a capital I and accentuated the net, even though his wife nagged that you had to put the emphasis on inter. The steering group realized soon enough that the internet would watch Obed throwing out his rubbish over Obed's own dead body. And in the end, no cameras were installed, just as well. Obed reasoned. The daily inspection was more effective anyway. You knew who was doing what and who was keeping things under control. Anyone with half a brain could see the sense of it. When he'd finished his inspection of the bin room, he locked the door, just like he did every morning, and gave it 3 good tugs to ensure it was closed properly. Then he turned around and noticed a bicycle leaning up against the wall outside the bike shed. Even though there was a huge sign instructing residents not to leave their bicycles there. Right next to it, one of the neighbors had taped up an angry handwritten note. "This is not a bicycle parking area. Learn to read signs." Obed muttered something about ineffectual idiots, opened the bike shed, picked up the bicycle, put it neatly inside, then locked the shed and tugged the door handle 3 times. He tore down the angry notice from the wall. He would have liked to propose to the steering committee that a proper no lifting sign should be put up on this wall. People nowadays seem to think they could swan around with angry signs here, there, and anywhere they liked. This was a wall, not a bloody notice board. Obed walked down the little footpath between the houses. He stopped outside his own house, stood over the paving stones and sniffed vehemently along the cracks. Piss. It smelled of piss. And with this observation, he went into his house, locked his door, and drank his coffee. When he was done, he canceled his telephone line rental and his newspaper subscription. He mended the mixer tape in the small bathroom, put new screws into the handle of the door from the kitchen to the veranda, reorganized boxes in the attic, rearranged his tools in the shed, and moved the soft winter tires to a new place. And now here he is. Life was never meant to turn into this. It's 4 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon in November. He's turned off the radiators, the coffee percolator, and all the lights, all the wooden tub in the kitchen, in spite of the snooze at IKEA saying the wood does not need oiling. In this house, all wooden worktops get an oiling every 6 months, whether it's necessary or not. Whatever some girlie in a yellow sweatshirt from the self-service warehouse has to say about it. He stands